Hey everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at how to paint this model made by Bestiarum Miniatures called the Phalanx Guard. This is a 3D printed model, however you can take these same colors and techniques and apply them to your own fantasy or sci-fi models. So let's get started. We're going to start with priming with Chaos Black, and then we're going to start getting our base colors down, starting with Dryad Bark from Citadel for the main bit of cloth. We're also going to have a lot of different brown tones on this model, and I think that's going to add a lot more variation and make for a more interesting model to look at. Next, for the leather straps on his chest, his arms, and his legs, we're going to be basing these using Rhinox hide. Next, for the wood portions of his shield on the front and back, I'm going to be using AK's AFV wood base. Now for the flesh, I'm going to have this be a palish blue toned after a few washes, but we're going to base it with Pallid Witch flesh from Citadel. Next, we're going to start basing all of our metal elements. For our iron bits, I'm going to be using Iron Warriors from Citadel. I really like it. It's a nice medium to dark tone metallic paint that I think will fit this scheme really well, but you can use any metallic paint you want. For the shield decoration on the front, I got my hands on some Green Stuff World's Gladius Bronze. I haven't used this paint before, but I wanted to try something new rather than what I usually use, and I think actually it looks really nice. Before we start to apply some of our washes, I just took some black and touched up the pole he's holding. So when I started this, I wasn't sure if I wanted this to look like an undead zombie or I just wanted to have some blue toned flesh, but I took some Drakenhof Nightshade and from the pot started to apply it to where our flesh was, making sure I got good coverage over everything. So after it dried, I thought maybe I had overdone the blue. Maybe I should have thinned it down a little bit. But I went back to our Pallid Witch flesh, I thinned it down quite a bit, and I began to just glaze it onto the higher portions of the muscles to knock down the blue, so it wasn't so saturated. After that is done, it's time to apply a matte varnish onto the cloth and flesh. I want to retain a lot of the metallic finish I have, so I didn't apply a varnish to the metal. When that is good and dry, I'm going to take some AK Interactive Dark Brown Wash and adding just a splash of mineral spirits to a rough like 20-80 ratio, and I'm going to apply it to the whole model. Make sure you get every little nook and crevice because what you miss will really stand out. Be sure to apply this with a cheap brush, don't use your nice brushes for these next few steps. Once that's on there, I take a Q-tip and with some mineral spirits on it, I wipe most of the spirits off and then I start taking some of the wash off. I use a lot of dabbing motions in addition to wiping motions, but be gentle, especially on parts of the model where we didn't apply a varnish, so we don't take any of the acrylic paint off. After that's all dried, your model is going to look something like this. On this particular model, I didn't want to drown him in rust, so I decided to just add a small amount of it to get a nice little effect. I used AK's rust streaks, added a small amount, and then taking a cheap brush with a small amount of mineral spirits, I wiped most of the spirits off, and then I started to work the rust to make it look more naturally occurring. We're going to do the same process but with our light rust wash. I just used a small amount and applied it to where the rust was already on the model, and then I took a brush with some mineral spirits on it and started to work it off maybe where I thought I applied it too heavily, or if I just wanted to manipulate it a little bit to make it look more natural. After that, we're going to add some highlights using Stormhost Silver, and then using a stippling technique, we're going to apply it sparingly to the sharpest pieces of iron and on some of the edges as well. Next, we're going to do the same thing, but instead of Stormhost Silver, we're going to be using Sycorax Bronze on the metal decoration on the shield. Now onto the cloth. I used a 50-50 split of Dryad Bark and Gorthar Brown. I thinned it down and started to add some value to the cloth, mostly sticking to the higher portion of the cloth and avoiding the crevices of the folds. Next, using some thinned down Gorthar Brown, I start to apply it on the raised edges of the folds using the same stippling and some edge highlighting, but I didn't want this to appear super uniform, so I opted for more stippling. It helps create a nice texture as well to make it look more gritty. The last portion of this is taking some Carrick Stone and the same process of applying it on the highest portions of the folds using stippling. Now, I'm not the best at painting cloth or leather, but I feel like I did rather well here, and I can always improve, but hopefully this gives you a good basis for your painting journey as well. For our leather straps, the process is going to be the same as our cloth brown. We're using Morphing Brown and later Scrag Brown to add value and definition to the leather straps. We are nearly done, but I wanted the bottom portion of the cloth to appear darker, so I took some Nuln Oil and I started to roughly glaze it towards the bottom of the model to create more depth. I also wanted a small amount of blood on the blade, and I used some blood for the Blood God for this step. Also, make sure you get any dog hair off your model. Mine sheds like crazy, and it's slowly driving me crazy. The very last thing is my Nuln Oil finish was more satin than I wanted. Probably I didn't shake it well enough, so I went back to our matte varnish and just applied it to where our Nuln Oil was applied. And that is model done. Looking back at it now, I could have pushed the cloth to be more gritty, maybe by adding some more darker splashes and working the Nuln Oil more on the bottom. Maybe not such a heavy blue tone wash on this flesh, but overall I'm really happy with it. Thank you everyone who stopped by to watch. Even if you didn't learn anything, I hope it at least motivates you to paint or try something new on your models. Like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time.